Welcome back to the Great Primeval Show. I am the Archminister and I'm joined by Ancient Realms and Hodgepodge. Today we'll be breaking down Episode 2 of Primeval Series 1. Again, also known as Underground Infestation in North America,
Spinnennest
in Germany, and
Au bout du tunnel
in France. Written by Adrian Hodges and directed by Scylla Ware.
At the start of every episode of Series 1, except the first episode, we get a previously segment of the last episode, which recaps events for the viewer. Again, this previously text and graphic is the same as Prehistoric Parks.
Anomalies are starting to appear.
Cutter introduces the show with a brief monologue recapping the viewer with story beats from the last episode, in case they missed out or forgot what happened. There are also clips from the episode with relevant characters talking about the story so far.
The anomalies are conclusive proof that the past exists.
This footage of Cutter is a good quote to use for the intro, though it doesn't actually appear until later in episode 3. They also show the Hesperornis and Mosasaur from episode 3 as a little teaser to keep people interested in what's to come. In every following episode, the recap gets longer and longer since there's more story to recap.
I'd lost her, but now I think she's back from the dead.
Aside from the start of every recap, with the line "anomalies are starting to appear," this is the only time in Series 1 that Cutter directly speaks to the audience in a fourth wall break, though it could be his inner monologue. It then cuts to the titles. There is a slight goof near the end of the titles for this episode, as the shards appear to be duplicated on top of themselves. This appears to be the only episode to have this effect. We start out on a train in the London Underground that has inevitably been delayed by signalling, a common problem.
I can hear a train.
One of the passengers is getting a bit hot, and when she opens a window to get some air, something tickles her neck.
The arthropods are back.
She violently rejects its advances by slamming the window on it, severing one of its legs.
My leg!
Typical behaviour in the underground. The severed leg appears to be a practical effect. The woman's screams echo in the underground.
This clip of the CMU is an unused scene from episode 1, as you can see Cutter and Stephen walking to their office and Connor jumping off the wall to follow them.
They're called anomalies?
Connor is in the cafeteria of the uni, already breaking the Official Secrets Act by telling his friends about the anomaly and seeing a gorgonopsid. This definitely won't have any repercussions for him. A goof is that Connor says anomalies plural when they've only just encountered one so far. These two characters are Tom and Duncan, who appear in the following 2 episodes, played by Jake Curran and James Bradshaw, respectively. They are established as fellow geeks of Connor's little friend circle, constantly making references to numerous pop culture media, including Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker and David Prowse, Raiders of the Lost Ark, PlayStation, and Matrix Revolutions. Note how Duncan just has a plate full of chocolate bars for some reason.
Just how stupid do you think we are, Con?
Of course, they naturally don't believe him.
He's lost it. Totally. He actually seems to believe it.
This sparks interest between the two, as Tom hints at something we'll see later on.
There's 10 years of Helen's work here.
In Cutter's lab, he and Stephen pore through Helen's papers written by his wife, looking for answers about the anomaly. Cutter is motivated to find something that would help, despite Stephen's protests. No wonder Cutter's late to the seminars if he's just sitting in his lab all day.
If she knew about it, she'd have told you.
I wouldn't be so sure. Cutter looks at the picture of his wife, which initiates a flashback of seeing Helen from the end of the last episode. Alternate footage is used as Helen literally disappears on the spot. This did not happen in episode 1 as the footage cuts away. This could be interpreted as Cutter's imagination of Helen disappearing.
Just haven't been sleeping very well.
Stephen asks about this, to which Cutter brushes it off. Clearly still coming to terms with the idea that Helen is still alive, but without conclusive proof. Also keeping it to himself is a very maverick thing to do. Following this, a possible cut or deleted scene was in the novelisation of episode 1 and this episode. After Abby left the reptile program and joined the bug house in episode 1, I wonder what this scene could have looked like if it was filmed.
Abby, I have to slim down the reptile program.
And my job comes under the heading of instant weight loss, right?
They said I'd find you in here. You smell evil. What are you doing?
Elephant dung. I'm searching for parasites.
I brought you something.
It says I've been awarded a grant. The Helen Cutter Educational Trust. It's enough to fund my research at the reptile house for a couple of years at least. I don't understand.
Cutter liked the way you handle yourself. He wants you to stick around. Well, I'm sorry about your lizard.
What?
Rex. I know how fond you were of him.
Well, at least he's home now.
Still at the uni, Connor is on his trusty laptop. He is seen to visibly smile at whatever he's discovered on his screen. I sure hope it's legal. You can hear a hissing sound which is likely meant to be the Gorgonopsid. We then cut to Abby in her flat, a staple location across the first 3 series of the show, which appears in almost every episode. It's also the first of 3 separate flats she uses depending on the series. No idea how she affords it. According to an early pre-Series 1 article in Digital Spy, she is apparently flat-sitting for a wealthy friend who now lives in America. Inside her flat you can see various reptiles in tanks, including an albino python called Chris, a tortoise, a savanna monitor, and a frilled lizard, as well as a few others which are unidentified. We later see she also has a bearded dragon in Series 2 Episode 2. Suffice to say, all of these animals are kept in enclosures which are way too small for them. Some are so small that they can't even turn around, which is ironic because Abby has a giant flat. It also must be quite humiliating for these reptiles to be kept in such small tanks as they watch Rex move around the flat freely.
Hi. Wow.
Connor turns up, unannounced, and it's unknown how he knew where Abby lived.
How did you find out where I live?
In Series 2, we see him hacking government files to read details about Abby, so it's possible he did it here.
Keep out my personal information, Connor.
Abby hides Rex in his own tank before letting Connor in, a substantially bigger tank than all the others. There's no favouritism.
Is it me or is it just really hot in here?
Let's address the elephant in the room here by saying that Abby is only wearing underwear in these scenes because she put the thermostat extra hot to acclimatise Rex to the present day. Hannah Spirit herself complained about how her character was underdressed for a lot of Series 1, which was changed in the next series.
Are we seeing as much of that kind of thing in the next series, or are they phasing that out?
I'm sure on other people's bodies, but not my skin.
So what? So the flat's going to be not as hot?
I put my big boot down.
Where did you get this?
Internet. On the Weird Sightings forum?
Knowing Connor, he probably has accounts on all sorts of websites like this.
What does Cutter say?
It's nice that Abby already has a lot of faith in Cutter, like the previous episode, and trusts his word above anything else.
He already thinks you're an idiot.
Thanks very much. Rex.
Connor discovers Abby's inmate cunningly hidden under a blanket.
Kidnapping helpless lizards?
He's not a lizard! Connor decides to blackmail Abby by asking her to come with him for his silence. Perhaps he also just wants to hang out with the hot blonde.
Unbelievable. Come on, Abby. We're pals now, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Connor essentially coerces this out of her here, as she reluctantly agrees, though still asking whether they should tell someone about it.
So how's about it? You in?
Are you in or out?
You never know, we could find a new little playmate for Rex. They could get together and talk about really old times.
Well, Rex eventually does get some playmates, 14 episodes later. Back in the Home Office, it's said that Captain Ryan and the Special Forces are still clearing the evidence in the Forest of Dean, likely meaning footprints and the Gorgonopsid body removal. Possibly Ryan was in charge of building a fence around the anomaly site we later see in Episode 6, as well as posting a soldier to guard the area. Claudia mentions Ben Trent and his teacher from Episode 1, stating that they're not an issue in regards to saying anything to the press. I wonder what they did to keep their silence.
Pity the monster didn't eat them both. That would have been the neatest solution.
More of Lester's dry humour?
Joke. I don't like anyone to whom the adjective maverick might be applied.
Interestingly, in the novelisation, Lester is far more, for lack of a better word, aggressive towards Claudia, threatening her career if she messes up. Thankfully this was cut from the episode.
You've taken to him, haven't you?
Lester obviously doesn't approve of the way Cutter does things, though Claudia manages to convince him to keep Cutter, and presumably the rest of the team, on the anomaly operation.
I trust him, that's what you mean.
Here we see that Claudia is developing further feelings towards Nick, and that Lester is almost pushing for an answer.
This exterior shot of Arsenal Station was actually filmed at the real-life Arsenal Station. However, this particular area isn't seen again. Inside the underground tunnels, a pest controller is busy fumigating the tubes and being utterly inefficient at his job as he completely misses this rat.
The Verminator is on the job.
Meanwhile, from behind the rat comes a giant arachnid which gets its first taste of mammal. Note how the rat disappears once it's being chomped, though there's lots of blood.
It's blood.
We see the pest controller on his lunch break, and the dirty bugger drops his apple on the ground and then eats it anyway, despite him spraying pesticide.
It's unsanitary.
The scene then literally transitions with an apple crunch, with Cutter also eating an apple. His wife also eats apples in episode 6 and later in series 2 episode 6. Note how Steven's jacket is still in the lab here. In the novelisation, he would have been visiting Abby at this point, but since it was cut, it's not a goof.
It was my fault.
Cutter seems to take responsibility for Helen's disappearance, explaining that they had a row.
We had a row. Another row.
So it appears that Nick and Helen's relationship must have been quite rocky leading up to her disappearance.
She'd become obsessed with theories that I found ridiculous.
Cutter mentions Helen's wild theories, something which comes back into play in Series 2 and 3. These theories about evolution are explained by ghost lineages in real life, lineages of organisms that have long gaps in their fossil records but can be inferred to exist, such as coelacanths.
Totally inexplicable in modern evolutionary terms.
Nobody could have guessed that.
Yes, but she did.
This links to Helen's intelligence and how she essentially predicted how gaps in evolution could make sense with later discovering the anomaly. This also links to the partially dropped plotline of things changing in subtle ways. He also alludes that Helen might still be alive, but Claudia misses it, believing she was lost in the Permian.
She was lost 200 million years away in the past.
Actually, Claudia, 200 million years ago would have been the Jurassic, not the Permian.
And now, a walk in the Black Forest.
Meanwhile, Connor takes Abby to a very dark, cold and miserable looking location with the sounds of strange owl-like calls in the background.
You can hold my hand if you're frightened.
Connor fails to hide his growing feelings towards Abby, whilst also coming across as quite creepy.
If it's another Gorgonopsy, just run like hell.
Shut up, Connor.
That would be some bad luck.
The tent's only big enough for one.
It's barely even that. Maybe she's training for when she gets stuck in a sleeping bag with Cutter in the Lost Island.
I like sleeping out.
Connor is already contradicting himself from the last episode.
I'm not, really outdoorsy.
Clearly, Connor has just come underprepared.
I did the Duke of Edinburgh Award, you know.
This is an award given to young adults for completing a series of self-improvement exercises, so not sure how Connor could have won it for only one afternoon. Though if anyone was capable of winning and losing at the same time, it'd be Connor.
Till I sprain my ankle.
It's nice that Connor and Abby share a brief laugh here, even though at this point they barely know each other.
We should huddle together for warmth.
Peak creepy Series 1 Connor here. Connor really pushes it just a bit too far.
Or not.
Can I ask you a personal question? Is Stephen seeing anybody?
Stephen?
You can almost feel Connor's heart sink at this, since Abby is clearly into Stephen, despite only sharing one scene together so far. Also, how exactly is that a personal question to Connor?
Actually, I've never seen him with a woman. Could be gay.
What are you, gay?
Connor attempts to drive a wedge between Abby and Stephen with this line, as he wants Abby for himself, and sticks to this line of thinking even when Abby questions it.
But you don't know.
Not conclusively.
Abby is put off by this as she dramatically throws her coffee or tea away. Abby and Connor's relationship is quite one-sided here, as Abby is only interested in Stephen at this point, since the writers wanted those two together initially. Maybe Connor's just an uncool nerd.
Speak for yourself.
The New Forest was also filmed in a part of Black Park. Claudia and Cutter discussed the government's plan to make the anomaly operation a cover-up.
It's not a cover-up. Well, okay, it is.
We could start off by telling everyone the truth.
Cutter is initially for revealing the truth of the anomaly in creatures because of how big this phenomenon is, though obviously after the events of episode 6, his opinion changes. Instead, Claudia is adamant that it should stay a secret. A cover-up. Connor will be thrilled.
The alternatives are panic, hysteria, potential lawlessness.
Series 5 would go on to show a similar thing with Convergence.
Text from Abby. Connor thinks he's onto another anomaly. They've gone to investigate.
Abby must have texted Stephen for help against Connor's wishes. Seemingly she got his number already.
Where are they?
Cutter and Claudia appear very concerned as this should all be under wraps, and obviously the others should have been informed. In the novelisation, Abby's phone died and Connor switches his phone to silent after seeing a call from Stephen. Cutter asks Claudia to trace Abby's mobile. This explains how Cutter and Stephen find where Abby and Connor are when they were seemingly uncontactable. This shot of Connor beside the river as the sun sets is really nice. It then dissolves into a nighttime view with the same framing suddenly becoming spookier and chillingly quiet. Note that Connor's phone is ringing, though he's fallen asleep at his vigil. Did Abby ever take over from him, or just stay in the tent? We cut to shots of something moving in the tree line. The shaky cam is used to create a sense of terror, and with the few shots we do see of it, it looks like a dinosaur. Abby scrambles to wake Connor up as the pair face off against the threat. How did he manage to sleep through all the noises and phone vibrating? Oops, well, I guess it wasn't very sturdy without its legs. But why is it in a pram of all things?
Careful, it bites!
Tom and Duncan revealed themselves as the pranksters who bid a hasty retreat once a police car arrives. The fake dinosaur which Tom and Duncan pranked them with was also presumably made by crawly creatures, which is a bit ironic since they were also tasked with making realistic creatures for Primeval, and previously the Walking With series and Prehistoric Park. How did Tom and Duncan get sounds of the Gorgonopsid to play for their prop? It's also likely that the post on the Weird Sightings forum was created by them to get Connor to come to their location to be pranked in the first place. Meanwhile, the pest controller becomes controlled by a pest, and we get Wilhelm number 2.
This is pest control!
Cutter manages to convince the police officer not to prosecute Abby and Connor for trespassing, somehow. Perhaps he told him he was conducting fieldwork for his dissertation.
It's a work in progress.
It's not clear who called the police or why. Perhaps Claudia did as a last resort to try and find them. Maybe Tom and Duncan did as part of their prank. Or maybe it was a random civilian who spotted or heard people trespassing. Perhaps even the landowners? Stephen is also studying the jaws of the fake dinosaur, perhaps admiring the craftsmanship.
You just couldn't keep your mouth shut.
Connor definitely comes across as a student being scolded by his teacher, which is exactly what's happening.
You're so big. I had to tell somebody.
Connor basically says what Cutter was discussing with Claudia earlier, though his actions have consequences, and telling his friends has caused problems for the team.
Go back to college, get on with your work. I'll find you another supervisor.
Cutter is quite harsh to Connor here, though he's not left with much choice, as he lets Connor go from the anomaly operation due to breaking the Official Secrets Act.
That's it, you're out of the herd!
It's a little odd that Cutter is firing Connor here, even though the team hasn't officially been formed yet. If it was for breaking the OSA, then perhaps Claudia or Lester should have sent him home instead?
Take him out.
Just as much to blame as he is.
Taking the deleted scene into account, would Cutter be frustrated at Abby that no sooner had he given her the Helen Cutter Educational Trust than she goes and jeopardizes it here?
Just as stupid, maybe.
Cutter decides she was only an accomplice to this, and has more skills that are useful to the team, whereas Connor's genius has yet to come to full fruition. Connor is visibly upset as his dream job has just been taken away, just as soon as he landed it. At a London hospital, Cutter and Claudia arrive to investigate an unusual occurrences and creature attack, as at this point they have no way of tracking anomalies. This could lead them to investigating false alerts, something which occurs in episode 4. Note that Cutter took the time to change his outfit between scenes. Interesting priorities.
How the hell he changes clothes so fast?
The pest controller is in a state of shock and convulsion, foreshadowing events near the end of the episode.
It's not the wound that's killing him, it's poison.
The doctor explains how the pest controller is dying from poison. This should be referred to as venom, not poison, but she does correct herself. She also says they're running tests, though obviously they have no anti-venom yet.
He was babbling about monsters.
This is a quote we hear a few times in Series 1, and obviously piques the team's interests.
It's a single puncture mark, but it's not a knife and it's not an axe. It's more like a bite.
This puncture wound is quite graphic for the show's family-friendly rating.
From what?
Good question.
Obviously Cutter deliberately doesn't say more, since how strict he was with Connor earlier. The hospital exterior was filmed at Royal Free Hospital in London. Back at the Home Office, Lester mentions the mayor. This could be the minister from Series 2 onwards, but in the original timeline. Or the Mayor of London, which at the time would have been Ken Livingstone.
Something injected a fatal dose of venom into his bloodstream.
A perfectly rational explanation.
Oh, now that I'd love to hear.
Lester sounds as if he doesn't want to deal with the anomalies anymore. Who can blame him?
Excuse me, sir. Would you mind terribly throwing the whole bloody underground into chaos because we think there might be a fair-dodging, creepy crawly on the loose somewhere?
Iconic Lester humour.
There's a whole network of disused tunnels down there.
And the trains probably aren't running away. Interestingly, this is the last time we see Lester in this episode.
Yes, very well.
As the team arrives at the underground station, an early version of the Primeval theme from the original soundtrack plays here. Note it's not the exact same as the version that plays in Series 2. We see Captain Ryan once again accompanied by Special Forces soldiers who secure the area. The scientist who studied Rex in episode 1 is also on site.
Special forces going first. Didn't think Lester was going to let you have it all your own way.
The trained professionals do a recess before Cutter and his team are allowed to access, which Cutter gets frustrated by. It's really nice to see that the government does consider the team's safety and prioritises military investigations first. This outside area was filmed at the Boundary Estate in Benthall Green. Ryan and his squad enter the tunnel. The imagery of the darkness beyond the station is quite spooky. The underground infestation is coming from a side passage which they enter with night vision goggles, despite it being quite well lit.
Oh, cool, night vision.
They don't even know what they're looking for. And there can't be that many different types of venomous predator under the old witch.
You should see the last tube home on a Friday night.
This bunker is likely left over from World War II and is a very cool setting for a Primeval episode. This shot looking up at the hundreds of eyes staring back at the Special Forces is pretty creepy, as Ryan lifts his goggles to view. The music used in this scene is straight out of a horror movie, which adds to the claustrophobia and tension. All the arachnids start dropping from the ceiling in a form of attack. This deorients everyone except Ryan, who brings out some martial arts skills. Note how this scene is edited so you don't actually see any contact between Ryan and the spider. There's even a slow motion shot, which shows the chaos. We get the second Wilhelm for this episode, and the third overall, as this Special Forces cowers from the bullet he fired.
Withdraw!
They didn't get very far. Back on the surface, the soldier seems to be showing signs of being envenomated. Thankfully, there are at least 2 Special Forces medics on site. You can actually see 2 distinct puncture wounds on his neck from their mouth parts, which is a cool detail. Note, however, it looks slightly different to the bite mark on the pest controller. We never find out what happens to this soldier. Hopefully he survives his wound. Captain Ryan describes having symptoms such as ringing ears and headaches, which is an effect from absorbing too much oxygen, known as oxygen toxicity. He could do with a special air mix.
Without this special air mix, I'd really feel sick and get bad headaches.
The gunshots were too bright, like fireworks. Well, it's classic signs of excess oxygen in the atmosphere.
Ah yes, Stephen, an expert on effects of gunfire in oxygen-rich air.
But we're not talking about the Permian era any longer. This is much, much earlier.
How much earlier?
Maybe the Carboniferous, about 300 million years ago.
Love how Cutter's hunches are always correct. It's cool to see him theorise where the anomaly links to. Again, a Paleozoic time period, which is very interesting. The high oxygen content of the Carboniferous atmosphere is speculated to be due to the lack of large terrestrial herbivores to feed on the plants, allowing them to grow unchecked. This led to immense forests and swamps that boosted the atmosphere with oxygen. It's actually the fossilised wood of these forests that became the coal that humans burn today. It was thought that this is why arthropods at the time could grow so large, as their respiratory systems were not as effective as those of vertebrates and controls their maximum size. However, this is still debated, and it may have instead been due to lack of competition, as vertebrates hadn't fully adapted to life on land yet, or maybe a mix of two.
I need to see this for myself.
Cutter usually gets his own way eventually, and he convinces Claudia to let him and the team go down to the anomaly he speculates is there.
The Carboniferous arachnids are arguably the first creature to be made up for the show. This is due to them possibly being based on several different animals. Most likely, it is meant to be the same animal as the Mesothelae spider that appeared in the Carboniferous segment of Walk with Monsters, which itself has a confusing history. It was based on Megarachne, an animal initially interpreted as a giant spider, but during production of Monsters was found to be a eurypterid, aka a sea scorpion that did not actually live in the sea. Stephen's line,
"Technically these are probably scorpions,"
may be an in-joke referring to this. To somewhat remedy the situation without having to retool the story, they changed the name of the animal to Mesothelae, which is the name of a group of modern spiders. As for the primeval arachnids, despite often being called spiders, their pincer-like mouthparts appear to be more like those of solifuges, a different group of arachnids that are also still alive today, also known as camel spiders. If they are indeed meant to be solifuges, it's possible they are Protosulpuga, a type of solifuge from the Carboniferous of Illinois. As Primeval tends to do, they are much larger than the only known specimen of Protosulpuga, and it is unknown whether they were colonial, as modern solifuges are solitary. All of this makes it very difficult to comment on how accurate these creatures are, as I don't really know what exactly they're meant to be. Overall, their appearance is near identical to camel spiders, but with a shorter, more bulbous abdomen and being darker in colour. Obviously, reaching up to a metre, including legs, is far larger than the 15cm camel spider. Instead of typical spider fangs, they have large pincers.
I never get used to that. Got the pincers, always forget those pincers.
Seemingly for catching their prey, although we never see them in use. Camel spiders move their pincers in a side-to-side motion, which you can actually see in one shot. Solifuges lack venom, yet when one bites the Special Forces soldier, he seems to twitch as though he's been envenomated. He could have been suffering from shock, or perhaps they do have a slightly venomous bite. They have 6 eyes, a pair on the front and a pair on each side of the head, instead of the usual 8 eyes of spiders and the 2 large eyes of solifuges. They also exhibit eye shine, which are known in true spiders, but not solifuges, so I suppose it's a mix of traits of these two arachnid groups. They make hissing and screeching vocalizations. This is a common trope in media for arthropods, even though they don't have vocal cords.
It doesn't have any vocal cords.
The coloration is dark mottled grey. Interestingly, they're also covered in lots of short hairs. This is impressive, as animating hair costs extra, and there are a lot of spiders in this episode. They have the correct number of legs with 8 and 2 long leg-like pedipalps, also found on solifuges, used as sensory organs like insect antennae. We see the arachnids dropping onto the Special Forces soldiers, so this could be some form of attack they would use to hunt prey, perhaps dropping from the trees of the coal swamps they call home.
It would leap down and ambush them.
Modern solifuges tend to either run down their prey or ambush them from their burrows. Some species can climb trees, but none are known to do this kind of dive-bombing maneuver. It's interesting that they're shown to live in a swarm or colony, when this is very rare in arachnids, including solifuges. Though there are some social spider species, the arachnids are sensitive to the light, which either suggests they have been down in the tunnels for a period of time and acclimatized to the low light conditions, or the Carboniferous is really dark. More likely, they are nocturnal. Solifugae actually means those that flee from the sun in Latin, so perhaps this is where the writers got the idea for these creatures. It's nearly impossible to judge the accuracy of these creatures, as they may not even be based on a real animal.
There is a brief shot of Connor sitting alone on the uni campus, feeling sorry for himself, and you can hear some laughter in the background which almost sounds like it's mocking his predicament. Cutter, Stephen and Abby suit up in the Special Forces outfits, ready to go underground.
Now, we need torches. The most powerful you can find.
Cutter rejecting Ryan's offer of a gun is the first instance of his Series 1 arc, where he doesn't want to cause any harm to the creatures for fear of disrupting the timeline. More on this later.
Vision isn't the issue.
Cutter has a hunch that torches can be used to deter the arachnids. Let's see if he's right.
Pest controller died a few minutes ago.
Without an anti-venom, this guy was doomed. I'm surprised he hadn't already died from eating an apple off the underground floor like a heathen.
What's she doing?
It's odd that Claudia singles out Abby here. Perhaps it's due to her foolish excursion with Connor, or maybe she's questioning her experience and used to the team.
Abby's got more practical experience with animals than the rest of us put together.
Cutter wisely vouches for Abby, as she knows a lot about animals, thanks to her being a
zookeeper.
I don't care if she's Dr. Dolittle.
This is a reference to Dr. Dolittle, who is a character who could talk to animals.
Just finished the study in insect behaviour.
As mentioned earlier, this was the dropped plot of Abby working at the bug house at the zoo. Stephen even gives a little reaction here, indicating he already knows about this.
Spiders aren't really my thing.
Technically, these are probably scorpions.
Solifuge are more basal than both scorpions and spiders, so on the evolutionary family tree, they are probably equally distantly related.
I feel better already.
In the novelization, Stephen jokingly asks Abby to stay near and protect him. The pair have a moment before Claudia interrupts by handing them radios. The epic music swells as the team enters the underground. This is what makes Primeval great. Group shots like this. Them turning their torches on in time with the music is always so cool.
On the floor.
They encounter one of the arachnids, probably out hunting for another rat. All the others from the ceiling have since retreated, however. Cutter's hunch is right, as he flashes the spider with his torch, which scares it off.
Does anyone have a really big slipper?
Don't like this.
The claustrophobia must be getting to Cutter. Their torchlight continues to scare off the arachnids, as they all flee the bunker. Stephen also manages to step on one, to which Cutter gives a very amused reaction. Hopefully that doesn't permanently alter the course of evolution.
Cutter?
Abby calls the others over as she's spotted something. You can hear the telltale sounds of something shimmering. Note that there's some goo on the mesh fence here, probably a secretion from one of the bugs. They likely nibbled their way through. The anomaly is then fully shown in all its glory, and we get an awesome panning shot of it as Cutter says,
"What's happening to us?"
The shards also blur and distort the characters as they pass in front of them, and it looks fantastic. This line coupled with the shot again helps convey such mystery and wonder, and captivates the viewer. This also shows that the Forest of Dean wasn't just an isolated abnormality in the universe. The anomalies are real phenomena that occur and join places in space and time. This likely leads to Cutter's theory he puts forward to the Home Office officials in episode 3, that anomalies have occurred many times in the past. This is also a case of the team not seeing the anomaly until the camera shows it. This anomaly is also smaller than the Forest of Dean one, and appears to be lower in the ground. Some of the arachnids can be seen scuttling into it. Perhaps they've seen enough of the 21st century. This wonder of viewing the anomaly doesn't last very long, however, as, for the sake of the story moving on, Abby drops her torch and notices another creature.
What is it?
It's not a spider. What the hell is that?
Claudia radios Cutter, who tells them they're coming back up, as the Arthropleura is in full attack mode.
Steven, can you see it?
For such a big animal, this thing is very good at disappearing. There are some shots of it climbing overhead of the characters, before attempting to strike. How did it get up there so fast? Luckily, Steven gets out of the way. Next time he won't be so lucky. I wonder why the shot of Steven hitting it was slowed down. Cutter bravely distracts the Arthropleura so that Steven and Abby can escape, leaving him behind. In the novelization, Cutter drops his radio, which the anomaly's selective magnetism takes, and he also hits the Arthropleura in the face with his torch. Trapped between a bug and a hard place, Cutter opts for escaping into the service tunnels.
Hello?
Cutter hears echoing whispers of someone calling his name. It's unclear whether this is really his long-lost wife Helen, or just delusions from the oxygen toxicity.
Helen!
Helen actually being present in the underground would suggest this is real, but how she disappears would suggest delusion. You do see a shadowy figure running off, but why she continues to elude him is unknown, since she actually wants to speak to him. Perhaps she's more comfortable in her own prehistoric territory, being in the Carboniferous or later Cretaceous as seen in the next episode. Cutter comes to a dead end in the search for Helen, and oblivious to Steven's rescue.
All I'm getting is interference.
At the surface, Steven and Abby reunite with Claudia, who tries calling Cutter again, but since he's deep in the underground, there's no signal. Since Cutter lost his radio in the novelization, this explains why he's uncontactable. However, in the actual episode, the radio earpiece just disappears.
There's no other way out. This tunnel was blocked 30 years ago.
Claudia has a map of the tunnels, which presumably she got from the Home Office in order to coordinate the team and special forces.
No one goes anywhere until we know what we're dealing with.
Steven's close friendship with Cutter is reinforced here as he refuses to leave his friend trapped, though Claudia is having none of it. It's interesting to see her being the de facto team leader here, since Lester is at the Home Office, and she's pretty strict. I wonder why she doesn't send the special forces down again.
Some kind of centipede.
They're huge!
Strange that Steven doesn't know about Arthropleura, considering he's a paleo lab tech. I guess since it doesn't actually look like one. It does, however, somewhat necessitate them needing the closest thing they have to an expert on extinct animals when Cutter is unavailable.
We don't know! No one does!
Connor might.
It's good that Steven suggests Connor's help, since he helped identify the creatures in the previous episode. This goes against what Cutter said, but since he's not here to protest, Claudia brings him in.
He probably has giant bug fridge magnets.
Knowing Connor, he probably does.
Can't go down there without backup.
Watch me.
At the expense of his own safety, Steven decides to be a maverick and go back underground. Abby, despite hesitating, lets him go.
Steven arrives back at the foot of the tunnels, and for some reason kicks a dead rat. This episode really hates rodents. Looking for a weapon other than a gun to defend himself, he picks up some chains, but instead he finds a makeshift flamethrower. Hell yeah.
You're kidding. I so wanted to fire this.
In the novelization, Steven only uses a spray bottle of turpentine. This was almost certainly changed to a flamethrower to be more exciting, visually on screen. With the music blaring in a very funky tune, you can hear chains rattling, creating a sense of uneasiness and danger as Steven enters the anomaly room. One of the arachnids takes offense to Steven's presence, to which he demonstrates the flamethrower's use. This scene always feels so gritty and dark, especially with the sense that danger could lurk around any corner. Nearby the anomaly, Steven checks the boxes the Arthropleura was hiding behind before. Suddenly it approaches, but is put off by the flamethrower. One could say that it's centipeded by it. There is a brief lull in the action here as the viewer receives a false sense of safety as the Arthropleura retreats. However, Stephen walks too close to the anomaly and its selective magnetism suddenly spikes and takes the flamethrower from his hand.
You have butterfingers?
With an active flame still burning from it, being thrown into the atmosphere of the Carboniferous probably wasn't ideal. Wait, hang on, did the flamethrower start the forest fires in Walking with Monsters and Prehistoric Park?
A huge fire has devastated Misothile's neighbourhood.
Look at this. It's so easy for fire to get a hold. In Carboniferous times, there's so much oxygen in the atmosphere, this is going to go through the forest at a fair old lick. Oh God.
The Arthropleura is apparently intelligent enough to comprehend that Stephen is now disarmed and instantly comes back for another attack. Stephen tries to escape but ends up coming face to face with the threat. The shot cuts to black with the sounds of the Arthropleura echoing so that we don't see the outcome of what just happened.
Stephen!
This is the third time that a character has failed to respond in this episode. Claudia then realises what's happened.
He was trying to help. He's done a really great job, hasn't he? That's the problem with heroic gestures. Succeed and you look wonderful. Fail, and all you do is leave everybody else with a bloody mess to clear up. Well done.
She tells Abby off for Stephen's actions and for not telling her, but at least sends Ryan down to rescue them. Meanwhile, Connor arrives, with his valuable invertebrate insight. Stephen enters a paralytic state from the Arthropleura venom, just like the pest controller, as he lies shivering on the ground. Odd that the bug just left without eating him.
It didn't eat him.
Maybe it just saw him as a threat. This would also back up the idea that Arthropleura is supposed to be herbivorous. Now, there is some discrepancy here, as we're shown that the pest controller was attacked by a giant arachnid, and who seemed to suffer the same injury as Stephen, but Stephen was bitten by the Arthropleura. It seems that the most likely explanation is that the pest controller was later attacked by the Arthropleura as well, off-screen, which would mean that the unlucky guy got attacked by two different angry arthropods on the same day. What are the chances? This does make for an interesting red herring scenario, with the spiders being wrongly accused for much of the episode. A mysterious figure approaches sickly Stephen, someone who looks familiar but is kept out of focus, to add to the ghostly quality of their appearance here. They seem fascinated by Stephen's state, but say nothing.
Why don't you say something?
Through blurred vision, from Stephen's perspective, we and Stephen both glimpse Cutter's estranged wife, Helen. Again, we don't know if this is delusional or real. It's interesting to speculate why Helen doesn't help Stephen here. We know that they had a close relationship 8 years ago, as revealed in episode 6. Maybe Helen presumes that Nick would get him to safety, though she could have at least dealt with the Arthropleura for him. Instead, she gives him a message to pass on. Cutter then turns up, seemingly having given up the search for Helen, and having just missed her, but instead finding Stephen after Helen disappears again. Since they're both close friends, Cutter attempts to rescue Stephen, as he can't just wait for the special forces to arrive.
You're not dying, I can wait.
Well, actually, he is.
Helen's alive!
Cutter is pretty level-headed whilst helping Stephen until he mentions this, and demands to know more. Since he was already searching and hearing her voice, this is all the proof he needs.
She's waiting on the other side of the anomaly.
Stephen spills all the juicy info here, which Cutter absorbs quietly, and decides to keep to himself.
Help! We need a medic! So it's probably an arthropleura. That's a centipede on steroids, basically.
Using his database, Connor IDs the centipede as an arthropleurid, despite the database said to only include vertebrates. The image used is from Walking with Monsters. This thing is more like Arthropleura in name only. Instead of resembling the giant Carboniferous millipede-like arthropod, it appears to resemble a giant version of a modern-day Scolopendra centipede. And as such, the characters often refer to it as a centipede. We could speculate that perhaps a group of Scolopendra wandered into the Carboniferous via another anomaly, and over millions of years became supersized. Otherwise, this could be an example of the timeline changing in subtle ways. There were scolopendromorph centipedes that lived in the same time and place as Protosalpuga, such as Mesoscolopendra, but this animal was only about 5 centimeters long, a far cry from the 6-meter giant seen here, which is also twice as long as the longest estimates for Arthropleura. Maybe this is one of those animals that's been made subject to Primeval's tendency to oversize animals. Despite the notable differences, Arthropleura is also yet another creature that also appeared in Walk with Monsters as well as Prehistoric Park. Real Arthropleurids were considered a distinct group of millipedes in a paper published in 2000. However, as of 2024, a paper describing some well-preserved juvenile specimens found them to be more basal than the centipede-millipede split within the Myriapoda group of arthropods.
And when you get close to it, I'm not sure whether it's a centipede or a millipede.
These specimens also marked the first specimens to preserve the head of Arthropleura, and it was truly unique, with stalked, crab-like eyes. Its lifestyle and habitat were also reinterpreted. Instead of living in the dense swamp forests, it was thought to have lived in more open, coastal environments and was even amphibious. It was the largest land animal to have evolved when it first appeared, and its size may have been thanks to the higher oxygen content of the Carboniferous atmosphere and/or lack of competition from vertebrates, as they hadn't fully colonised land yet. Going back to Primeval's interpretation, this arthropleurid is ginormous, appearing to be around 6 meters long, not even counting the antenna and back leg hooks. The coloration is seemingly based on a number of real-life species of Scolopendra, which adds credibility to the design. Its body appears to be made up of 30 heavily armoured segments. It has a pair of half-metre legs on each segment, with 2 modified hook-like legs on the rear. Arthropleura means jointed rib after its armoured segments, called tergites, which have broad paratergites that stick out to the sides like ribs. These are absent from this model, likely to make it more flexible like a centipede. Also absent are small, sharp spines on the armour. There is also a practical effect for its head, seen when attacking Cutter. You only see it for a second or two in the episode, but luckily we get a better look with these behind the scenes photos. Centipedes have fairly complicated head regions. Whilst they may look like mandibles, the large forcipules are actually modified legs. These are what inject the venom, not whatever this thin white proboscis thing is. I'm not sure if this is meant to be one of the maxillary palps, as you can see the maxillae here. It's also very agile, being able to dodge bullet fire somehow. Especially impressive seeing as centipedes generally have poor eyesight. Connor describes it as more or less blind. Most centipedes have only simple eyes, called ocelli. Scolopendra species have a pair of 4 ocelli behind the bases of the antennae, whereas this model only has a pair of 2 ocelli between the antennae for some reason. Interestingly, while centipedes use smell and touch to move around, this one can seemingly hear, despite not having ears. Like the spiders, it makes hissing vocalizations, or perhaps it rapidly vibrates its maxillae to create sound as a form of stridulation. No centipede does this, but some can stridulate their terminal legs to create sound. They also use crocodile hisses for it, and maybe some pig squeals too, which is odd. At the time, real Arthropleura were thought to be vegetarians. This one, however, appears highly aggressive and is venomous, so could be carnivorous. Though since it's based off of a Scolopendra, then this would make sense for this design. Alternatively, Claudia jokes this one just has a personality disorder.
It's the kind of bug that'd stick to the kitchen at parties.
Regardless of whether the venom is for offense or defense, when injected into another creature, it starts shutting down the central nervous system instantly, with death following mere hours later. It's unclear why a creature would need such potent venom in the Carboniferous, as mammals hadn't evolved yet, perhaps for any large reptiles, amphibians or fish encountered. If it's a carnivore like modern centipedes, it appears to be an ambush predator, as it is seen several times rearing up above victims before striking. This is a heavily stylized Arthropleura, which probably makes it one of the least accurate creatures in the show. Though I again applaud the creators for featuring more obscure extinct creatures like this in the show.
So it's not poisonous?
No way.
No, it's venomous. Connor's mention of the centipede as non-venomous and more or less timid is likely referring to the real animal, and differences in the primeval Arthropleura is probably building to the dropped plotline of Cutter noticing the differences in the timeline, since creatures are different compared to the fossil record. All of this knowledge falls apart when Cutter emerges with the envenomated Stephen.
He was taken sick! Bitten by the bug! He's been bitten by the Arthropleura.
Somehow, Cutter already knows what this thing is supposed to be. I guess he is an evolutionary zoologist.
Same wounds, same symptoms as a pest controller. Spiders are off the hook, it's the centipede that's the killer.
So they're not venomous? If they are, perhaps their venom just isn't as potent as the Arthropleura's, which apparently killed the pest controller. Since mammals had yet to evolve during the Carboniferous, the Arthropleura venom likely wouldn't affect humans in such a severe way.
I think he's going to be fine. It probably would have had an effect if it was going to by now, if he'd be really sick.
She was there.
What's he talking about?
Claudia catches Stephen asking Cutter to tell the others about seeing Helen, to which she questions him, but Cutter brushes it off as a hallucination. He's only just been told himself, so is probably still processing it all before deciding to tell everyone. This comes back to bite him next episode.
He seemed fairly lucid to me.
Really, Claudia? That counts as lucid to you?
Oh, you're beautiful. Have dinner with me.
Stephen deliriously asks Abby out here, which we can speculate is him not thinking rationally, since as we find out next episode, he already has a girlfriend, Allison. So not only would he be having a past affair with Helen, but also Abby? You 3-timing weasel.
It's amazing how much easier this stuff is when you're dying.
I'm not dying.
Abby assures Stephen about his continued existence and also decides to go to the hospital with him.
If we don't find out exactly what bit him, he will die.
No need to sound so dramatic.
There are no obvious treatments. People just don't die of centipede bites.
Well, this isn't strictly true. Death from centipedes, whilst rare, is possible, especially if allergic reactions are involved. Maybe she was only referring to smaller native UK species.
If we can get hold of a good sample of the venom, we might be able to find an anti-venom that matches it.
Hearing this, Abby relays the information to Cutter and the team, who formulate a plan. Wait, how did Abby get back from the hospital so fast? Captain Ryan and the soldiers meanwhile follow Cutter's theory and herd the spiders back through the anomaly using torches. It's a cool detail to see them tripping over each other and this arachnid fall over in some convincing animation. This Special Forces soldier looks uncannily like Mac Rendell from the later Canadian spin-off Primeval New World, where he would technically be working for the team, or at least the British Army, in an alternate timeline.
And on no account let it return through the anomaly. Repeat, do not let it go back. You find me something that'll do the job.
Considering Cutter fired Connor just earlier today, he is very trusting, letting Connor provide him with a venom collection band. It's not clear if Connor just found one or made this himself.
I'm going to invite a very angry centipede to bite me.
Cutter, Claudia and Connor go back down to the underground for a venom sample. Notice the whole atmosphere in the tunnels has changed now. Things are a lot less frantic and deranged, suggesting the oxygen-rich air may have cleared slightly, allowing more rational thought. Cutter leads the search through the tunnels, but finds no sign of the bug.
It's come back. We must have lost it. Damn it!
Everyone is back at the anomaly, seemingly at a loss at what to do.
If Stephen hadn't come back for me, then he wouldn't have got bitten.
Cutter is already blaming himself for Stephen being injured. I guess the loss would weigh heavily on him since he's already lost Helen, or so everyone else thinks. So if they think the Arthropleura has gone through the anomaly, were they planning on following it into the Carboniferous?
I'd forgotten, Arthropleura they were supposed to be burrowers, so look for a hole in the floor, in the walls, anywhere.
Before they do, Connor conveniently remembers this fact, which allows the search to continue. It's surprising that Cutter didn't think of this, considering he's usually very knowledgeable on the creatures. Perhaps in this case his mind was focused on Stephen, not allowing him to think clearly.
Cutter! I found it!
Oh, Connor, you continue to be iconic. Finding said burrow may finally prove himself useful on the team.
I'm gonna come too.
I love how awkward everyone's reaction is to this. Poor Connor just wants to be involved, and since he helped the team here, he's allowed to come along. Note that Abby is absent in this scene until now.
But if I don't come back, you can have my Star Trek Next Generation top trumps.
I'll treasure them.
Another pop culture reference here, where Connor mentions Star Trek The Next Generation.
On second thoughts, actually, maybe you should bury them with me.
It's turpentine. Bugs hate it.
Yes, turpentine actually does repel insects, so why weren't they using it before?
I won't have a panic attack. I will not have a panic attack.
Cutter, Ryan and Connor all enter the burrow. This tunnel appears to be a set connecting the two separate filming locations. So, did the Arthropleura burrow through solid concrete? This is similar to what the future Beetles do in Series 5, Episode 4. This is a really cool shot as the camera rotates from upside down to show the characters arriving in a power substation, another really cool location. In the novelization, this power substation is confirmed to provide power to the London Underground. This location was possibly filmed at a kinetic facility.
Could he really have climbed up there?
Let's find out. He's got to get a chance to get to me first.
Again, Cutter instructs Ryan not to shoot first, ask questions later, since he needs the venom and not just a dead bug. Aside from not wanting to disrupt history, Cutter likely wants to keep this creature alive because getting a direct venom sample is easier than trying to extract it from a body. That being said, Primeval New World would later just chop off a venomous tail for venom extraction.
Claustrophobia and vertigo on the same day. This is, fabulous.
Connor is just not enjoying himself here. Why did he even volunteer to come? The sign showing danger of death foreshadows the climax of this scene. The Arthropleura is seen climbing on the ceiling, and again, none of the characters can hear it. Connor instead knocks over a metal stool, which suddenly alerts them to the centipede. Fun fact, whilst filming this scene, the Arthropleura was just a paper face on a stick. Cutter deliberately puts himself forward as the target here, which has the desired effect. I sure hope he's okay. More on that in a bit. Once this is done, everyone begins attacking the big bug, with Connor whacking it with the stool.
Whack her!
When Ryan tries to shoot it, it skillfully dodges the bullets Matrix style, though he does manage to land some shots. Somehow it senses where the danger is coming from and skillfully takes Ryan's gun, leaving him defenseless. Nigel Marvin had a much more elegant method of defeating Arthropleura in Prehistoric Park. Connor, meanwhile, continues to hit it with his stool sample. Oh my god, I can't believe we left that in the script. Until it gets its mandibles caught up in the metal.
Let it go!
Clearly aggravated by this, the Arthropleura begins shaking violently around to try and free itself of this foreign object. Not the wisest move when the object is metal and you're surrounded by electrical boxes. Damn, that was graphic. So many creatures in the show end up dying gruesomely like this. This specific box appears to have been added in just for this scene.
Positively shocking.
After the zap of electricity, the Arthropleura shows the damage as its head is badly burnt since it's become a centipede barbecue. It also appears to be too big in these shots. When it falls so dramatically, folding over on itself and collapsing on the ground. Did it deserve this? Probably not. Note it lands almost directly on its burrow.
Get this back to Stephen.
Cutter reveals he had a pouch attached to his arm which the venom sample was injected into. Clever. Presumably after this encounter, the Home Office disposed of the body by either destroying it or dragging it back through the anomaly.
I smell burning insects.
The convulsions have stopped. That's something.
So the hospital managed to formulate an antivenom in record time, whereas in reality it would have taken them far longer to create. And Stephen would have died well before that. Fortunately in this reality, he's cured.
You really like him, don't you?
I don't know him.
That hasn't stopped you so far. Perhaps Abby is thinking things were progressing too fast between them.
When has that ever stopped people from fancying each other before?
Connor seems to be encouraging Abby to pursue Stephen here, despite his growing feelings for her too. Perhaps he's realising he cannot compete with Stephen's good looks.
Well, that's probably the real boyfriend. You see, the same thing happened to me once. With Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Connor mentioning Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a reference by co-creator and writer Adrian Hodges, who was inspired by Buffy when making Primeval.
Then she starts hanging around with this badly animated dog.
If you don't understand this joke, it's not a Buffy reference. Sarah Michelle Gellar, who plays Buffy, later went on to star in the Scooby-Doo movie, hence the animated dog line.
Doctor, I think he's back.
Stephen coughs himself awake to see Abby fawning over his bedside. Abby clearly wanting to follow up on that dinner date. I sure hope he didn't forget.
How are you feeling?
Like I gargled with sand and slept inside a tumble dryer.
Preparing for his adventure into the Silurian in Series 2, Episode 5?
What about Helen?
You saw her.
I saw her.
He doesn't know what you're yapping about, Claudia. One of the side effects of the venom appears to be temporary amnesia, as Stephen doesn't remember anything after he was attacked. Alternatively, Stephen may have been anaesthetized at some point during his treatment, which can also cause amnesia in rare cases.
You really can't remember anything after you're bitten? None of the things you said in the ambulance?
Was it important?
Nah, not really.
Despite Abby wanting to push for something involving Stephen, she brushes off the idea, clearly too embarrassed to confess her feelings. Or maybe, as we'll see in the next episode, she's moving on. Cutter sits quietly and alone, staring at the anomaly, still shimmering in the underground. Did everyone leave? What, no protection? What if another Arthropleura comes through? In the novelisation, there are scientists still studying the anomaly and soldiers clearing the area before the site was to be sealed forever. However, this does not match with the next episode or the next novelisation, as we see Connor returning there.
Does this mean I'm back in?
Anywhere we can keep you out.
Cutter begrudgingly lets Connor stay and be allowed back on the team since he helped save Steven's life. Technically Claudia was in charge, so Cutter doesn't really have a say at this point.
You did a good job.
I love Connor's reaction. He's just so happy to be involved. Connor and Cutter properly start their student-mentor relationship in this scene, which this shot is also paralleled closely in series 2 and 3. For how different these two characters are, they both respect one another and share similar fascinations with the creatures. So it's nice that they value each other's input to the team.
I don't suppose you'd consider giving me a cool nickname, would you?
No.
Classic Cutter. Though he could have called him Scrappy, Sid, or Le Connor Temple, Connor seems chuffed either way. Cutter is left to ponder the anomaly as he sits in front of it, staring into its beauty. Extending his hand out to the anomaly, he asks,
"Where are you, Helen? What do you want?"
his hand being so close and yet so far, as he reaches for the past, but decides against finding Helen and stays in the present. I mean, he could just stick his head through like Ben did in the last episode to see if anyone's there. Surely his curiosity would get the better of him to take a look at the Carboniferous.
Carboniferous, here we come!
Maybe Helen didn't stay around, since Steven's flamethrower probably burnt down half the forest. In closing, episode 2 takes place over 2 full days, and it's only a few days between this and the next episode. Join us next time for the breakdown of episode 3 of Primeval Series 1.
That's as good as it's going to get. And at first it seems so stupid and overreacting and a fear of being a terrible ham, and that we're all going to be looking at different things at different times. Rawr.